Greetings and buenos tardes, everyone. Welcome to Passage Theater's community dialogue of ALMA, Naturalized Souls, the Barriers of U.S. Citizenship. I'm Brescian Miller. I'm the Executive Artistic Director at Passage Theater here. This is in support of ALMA by Bin Benet, who you will see shortly. This show opens October 4th, and Passage Theater, the building right behind me in downtown Trenton, has long started these community dialogues as a way to bring the issues of our socially relevant theater to the people of Trenton and of Mercer County to talk about important but entertaining issues relevant in today's time. So I would like to, we have a wonderful host of panelists. Sorry, I didn't expect that. We have a wonderful host of panelists who I will now I would now like to introduce. Most notably, our playwright Benjamin Benet is a playwright from Los Angeles County, California. His work, including ALMA, has been developed and produced across the United States. He is a graduate of Yale School of Drama's MFA playwriting program. Welcome, Ben. We also have with us Pastor Jose Rodriguez, the Director of Education at the Pentecostal Church AG in Trenton, also the president of the Rodriguez Family Foundation. He was born and raised here in Trenton and lived in Puerto Rico for a little over 2
Hello,
years. Welcome, Pastor Jose.
Thank you.
We have with us as well Pastora Karen Hernandez Granzon. She has passionately served as pastor of Westminster Presbyterian Church of Trenton for over 29 years. Her other community engagements include serving as co-chair of United Mercer Interfaith Organization, chaplain of the Bethany House of Hospitality, an intentional young adult community, and as a board member of LALDEF, Latin American Legal Defense and Education Fund. Always glad to have you, Pastora Karen.
Presente.
Yes. And rounding out our panel, not rounding up, apologies. Next, we have Veronica De Leon. She goes by Vero. Born in Guatemala, Vero came to the States at the tender age of 12, did not speak the language of English, and has been involved in the community since a teenager, continuing to serve the Latino community here in Trenton. Thank you, Veronica.
Presente. Thank you for having me.
And finally, Waldemir Ronquillo, community organizer and born in Salcaja, Quetzaltenango, Guatemala. We are very glad for Waldemir's exuberance and presence joining us today.
Presente.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So to get us rolling about this, the script of Alma, Alma is a touching mother-daughter story that originally set place in the fall of 2016, dealing with a mother who was not born in the States, but a daughter who is. And they are regularly trying to navigate the pitfalls that may have in terms of what citizenship has to offer. So while Alma, the mother, is trying to take her citizenship test, Angel, the daughter, is trying to go for her SATs. It is a very touching story. But I don't want to say any more of that without hearing from our playwright, Ben Benet. Ben, if you could tell us in as many words as you need, why is this play important to you, and what is the story you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brescian. I began working on this play in 2015. I was commuting to work one day and I was listening to NPR. At that point in time, I was living in the state of Washington, where most of my family lives now, but I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, where the story of Alma takes place. And on the radio, a voice came on. It was Ann Coulter, and she was at a rally and talking about a wall that was going to be built between Mexico and the United States. And I couldn't quite believe my ears. I remember having to pull my car over and just be like, what is happening right now? And I think why it so viscerally affected me is because my mother was an undocumented immigrant who came to the United States from Guatemala when she was 17. And I was born here in the States. And so a lot of the relationship that gets explored in the context of the play between a child who is a citizen in the United States and has been assimilated to a certain extent and grows up with a certain amount of privilege as a citizen and having to look at the difference between the relationship between themselves and their parent who might not have the same protections. I will say, in my case, my mother came to the United States in the late 70s, as did many members of her family. And that was a very unique window in time because later, under the Reagan administration, she was actually granted amnesty and eventually had a pathway to citizenship. And I remember as a child, while I was in elementary school, my mom would take me to school every single day. But there was one day where she dropped me off with her friend Maria and said, Maria is going to drop you off at school today because I have something really important that I need to do. And when I saw my mother later that afternoon, she said, I'm now a US citizen. And and reflecting on that memory in 2015, as an adult, I was thinking about how arbitrary it could be that my mother was not a citizen in the morning when I was dropped off at school, and how when I could see her later in the day, she suddenly was. And so I think why this play became so important to me and why I wanted to interact with audiences is because of this question of people who are members of our community who are incredibly valuable in in terms that they are family members, in the terms that they are contributing to our society, that they pay tax dollars, but they aren't given the designation of citizen. And why is that? And thinking about writing this play, a big part of the question that I was asking was, well, what if my mother had come at a different time and hadn't been granted amnesty and had this pathway to citizenship? How would my life have looked? Possibly quite different. So a lot of what I'm exploring in the breadth of the play is the relationship between myself and my mother, my sister and my mother, and this question of how our lives could have been quite different had she come at a different time. A lot of the research that went into the play, I consulted with an immigration lawyer about how the law looked very different depending on when people came to the US. And how, in the context currently, that it is a criminal offense to come into the US undocumented, and how unfair that is from my perspective. So that's a big part of the conversation that I'm interested in having with this play.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Ben. That was a very touching story. That a lot of the themes of the play lock in. Hearing that. Um, I would like to hear words from our panelists. Starting with Vero, if you will. After hearing what Ben has to share, why is now such a critical time for these issues and for our Latin community?
Thank you so much. And Ben, you just brought me back to 1985 when I came to the States. And again, I was 12 years old. I didn't speak the language. My parents didn't speak the language, and they still don't. It was very difficult for them to learn the language. And so I remember watching Sesame Street, and they're like, "Why are you watching cartoons? You're 12." And I'm like, "I'm learning English," because they will teach them letters and they will teach them colors and numbers. And so my parents learned a little bit. Fast forward, and like you were saying about the Reagan amnesty, my parents had applied for that. And although I knew I was undocumented back then, like it didn't register until I was graduating high school and I was applying to colleges, and everyone sent me a welcome letter, and it was as out of the country as an international student. And I remember them saying, well, just write us a check for the $21,000 was the back then. My parents together made 19,000 together. And so I knew I wasn't gonna go to Santa Barbara or Santa Cruz, which is where I wanted to go in California. And so, and now we see parents that are dealing, some of the parents that came here later, like in the 90s and 2000s, that are now having teenagers and that they are going through the same issues that, like Ben was saying, they're seeing those issues with their kids. I had to go through that with my own sons. I have two sons, and I remember telling them how privileged they were, getting, being a citizen and all the opportunities that they had. And to some of them, to the kids, sometimes it doesn't even register. And I know it's very important that for us immigrants, education, it's like the way to expand your horizons, become entrepreneurs, be better citizens, provide for your family. And education, we place such a high value on education. And I think that many of the children that are born here don't recognize that yet. And so it's still an ongoing conversation, like with parents. I hear the kids telling their parents, like, why are you always so pushy? Like, why are you pushing me with education? Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to college. And I'm like, do you not understand the value? I mean, what you're missing if you don't. And so, yeah, it's absolutely important, I believe, right now to have these conversations. And I'm so glad that Ben, it's putting Alma out there. We have to go see it.
Thank you, Vero. That was very heartfelt and very authentic. I appreciate that. Um, Waldemar, would you be able to share any thoughts on what is recently said, especially in terms of the difficulties with culture shock and different culture barriers that are given?
Yes. First of all, Ben, first I want to congratulate you because more kids like you, we wanted to tell the truth how their parents. And you bring me back in 1987 when I arrived. That's the year I arrived to New Jersey. Um, but I came in by myself without my parents. I have to leave the country obligate for the Civil War. So I was part of the persons who got lucky to able to get the my apply for resident because I work in the field over 8 months in California. So back then, Ronald Reagan signed immigration refund. People working in the field was able to get after 6 months. You're able to get it resident or permit to work. I was kind of lucky once to get it, and I became a citizen almost 20 years ago. And it was a great moment in my life to become a citizen. I have 4 kids here in America. One of my daughters, she's a pastor. We break the chains the same. And like Alberto say, education is just the key for our Latino community and well, everyone. And and lately, why it's difficult to have paperwork after September 11? Because I've been working for a long time because I've been community activist. I've been fighting for immigration reform over 18 years. And every president promised to us they're gonna do every different president said we're gonna promise you, we're gonna my first 100 days in power, I wanna make it this immigration reform for Democrats and Republicans, the same thing. They use us for getting votes out there and not to be done. Um, and the last time when the President Trump got in, he signed in more than 549 against immigrants, like a order, or like a executive orders to affect a lot of Latinos in general, So, and I mean, what we need is like emergency immigration reform because we have a lot of people coming from different countries, and especially now. Now it's difficult. It's too dangerous and to come to America. And trust me, if we have to do it again, I might think it twice because all the danger in the way. Why it's too dangerous? Just cross the Mexico, it's too dangerous. People get killed now, and they kidnap you, the extortion, the woman's getting raped, and and it's just a lot of things that now it's going on before in the 80s. 80 was most easy to come to America, like you say, we illegally we cross the country. That's the only crime we commit, and I mean, like I say, it's difficult, and we need to work as a community together and see if we can able to get this immigration reform going on. And like like Alberto would say, educate our parents, especially the new arrivals. They respect the laws because for one, everyone pays the price. They look as a criminal, they look as a rapist, they look as a different way because we have to teach our community as a laws, we have to respect the law. Nobody's over law. I mean, I got more stuff to say, but I want to give somebody a chance to talk to. Thank you.
Thank you, Waldemar. We greatly appreciate your perspective. Um, I would like to hear from Pastor Jose and Pastora Karen because you each represent congregations and entire communities that come to your places of worship with these issues on a daily basis. So, if we could go to Pastor Jose first, why are these issues so critical now, and what are you hearing from the people you serve?
Absolutely. I want to first congratulate Ben on, I was able to read the script in the setting of being around 2016. Um, and I remember that period because that's when the elite media was making the Latino community like we were hurting the economy because these illegal immigrants were taking our jobs that I might add that Americans don't want because it doesn't pay enough. Um, and so I remember, and one of the things that really bothered me and why I think this is so important is that when it comes to that discriminatory and uh, microaggressions, they associate all the Latinos in the same boat. So I was born here, born and raised in the city of Trenton. I'm an Army veteran. None of that matters, right? My last name reveals who I am, and I felt that at that time period they were trying to blame the economic woes of this country on the immigrant community, which was false. When you look at, say, the other immigrant communities like from Asia or European immigrants with the H-1B visa, the average H-1B visa immigrant in this country who has a very good job is about 108,000 compared to what an immigrant from Central South America makes. It's like 40, and that's doing good, $40,000. So it was to me, it's very important for Americans to understand that for the people that watch this that may not understand our culture, that we are resilient people. We contribute to the economy, regardless of what the media says. We are great contributors. We're entrepreneurs, and we're hardworking. I feel like this really touches uh, the central theme of the Latino community, and there's so many branches to our community in terms of our ethnicity, which makes us different. Which is another thing that this country does not understand. They just say the Latino community. We have different dialects, we have different customs, different traditions, different food, a lot of similarities, but some differences. And Ben, I just want to say I love the Span English in this script. The Span English is when you're mixing as a New Yorican, you're mixing your Spanish and your English, you're going back and forth. You're even making words up when you do Span English. I love it. It's congratulations on a great play.
Thank
Amen.
you. Thank
So
you,
I
Pastor.
do want to start by applauding Ben. Um, the fact that you went to Yale, that's a big deal, amigo. Um, and my mentor was the first Hispanic to go to Yale, Reverend Dr. Um, Justo Gonzalez. And what I appreciate is you could have taken your education and written a play about something else, but instead you're using your craft to help not just the Latina community have a conversation about the themes that you highlight, but other communities as well. And so, if I could quote um, Emily Dickinson, she said, "Tell all the truth, but tell it slant." And what that means is sometimes the truth is too overwhelming and powerful to approach head on. And so I feel like you were so successful in your script. You dealt with so many different issues. And I appreciate you using this tool to bring the Latina community together, to educate those of us who did, that those of us born and raised here don't know what immigrants that have come from Latin and Central America have experienced. And we need to know so that then we can become um, comrades, so that we can be in solidarity. So the Puerto Rican is has citizenship, whether we're born on the island or born on the mainland. We need to use esa palanca. We need to use that leverage, that power, to empower and support other Hispanics that don't have it. I feel that very strongly. So I love the play. I laughed. um, the visceral that you talked about, the voice of Trump on TV caused a visceral reaction. And my husband, at first, it didn't bother him so much, but now, because Trump is running again, he's like, Karen, I can't listen to him. I can't listen. So the clever part of saying things slant is we're going to be able to have conversations with our diverse Latinx community, because this is a tool. Your play is a tool, fodder, as they say, to get the fire going, the fire of conversation.
Wonderful. That was absolutely wonderful and riveting, Pastora Karen. You actually answered my next question for those who were able to read the script. What is something striking about the script set in 2016 that is relevant now in 2024? And you, as well as everyone else, I believe, have answered that question. So I would actually like to pivot and take on a different question. What about this play is so important to Trenton and Trenton's population of nearly 40% Latin population that is can be such a large presence in Trenton, but also can be so unseen. If any of our panelists would like to speak.
And this is Vero again. Being the president of Asociación Buena Fe, becoming more and more involved within the community, especially here in Trenton. Even though I came to the States at the age of 12, I lived in California for about 12 years. And then I moved to Colorado for another 18 years. And I've been here 10 years. So I've been here all my life. I mean, it's like I've been here longer than anywhere else, or even my own country. But sadly, I'm seeing that a lot of our new immigrant parents are coming with their children, and there's so much going on with schools, and the parents are unable to communicate with the teachers, with the student council, counselors, and some children are even taking their lives. And going back to violence, like what is happening? Like why is this happening to our children? I mean, why is this happening to our children? And we need to come out and support them, because whatever they're going through, it's not something that their parents went through. And so they don't know how to communicate that. And I think that it's important that we begin to be part of our own community and start listening and start talking to our children. And for those of us who understand the language and are able to speak on their behalf, I think that it is our responsibility to do so. So thank you. I like Pastor Karen said, Ben's play, it's going to be great for our community. It's definitely going to get us talking. And I think we need that. We need something to wake us up.
One of the things that I liked about the play as I was reading it is the undertones, political undertones that are there, and how important education is to our community. In our church, our families, they work 3 and 4 jobs. Like, they make a sacrifice, and I try to tell them, listen, I know that your kid I know you want your kid to have an education. And I hate to say this, but I feel that, and I don't know, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes our parents want us to live their dreams. You know what I'm saying? They want us to succeed so bad that they push us, and in the process don't spend enough quality time with us, because they're working so hard to get us that education, to make sure that the American dream is achieved. And in the process, we lose the most important thing, which is familia, right? We lose that time together, that important time, that fellowship, understanding each other. And I feel, I don't know, I just feel like I see this in my church and in my congregation. Parents mean well. They love their children. They'll do whatever they have to do for their kids. Absolutely. But in the process, they overlook the quality time that they need to spend with those kids. Those kids, they need us. They need their parents. And so I also saw a little bit of the fear of the mother, questioning her about alcoholism and how the effects of alcoholism is big in our community. And that fear, promise me you won't drink, and this and that, and underage drinking. And so those things are the things that, to me, what I've seen are critical now, right? In our community, that it's okay. You can have a job, maybe even a job and a half, a part-time job, but you need to spend time with your family. You need to, and you can't expect your kids to live your dreams. Don't put that pressure on them. That's what I'm seeing, and once the kid is successful, they'll, like, I know one that took a loan from his son to buy a house. He took his son's success to buy a house for the family. And now, what happens to the son when he gets married and things of that nature. So it just, I feel like in this play, I saw that, that American dream is so desired that, that we lose focus of that relationship, that mother-daughter, father-son relationship.
Mm-hmm. You're so right about that, Pastor Jose. I think that that's definitely hurting our community and our children, is that we like that communication with them, because our parents are working 2, 3 jobs just to pay the rent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to put food in their mouths now, it's crazy. I mean, I was a single mother to my 2 sons, and if I was a single mother now, I don't think I would be able to make it. And I was making decent money. I mean, I didn't need to work 2 jobs, but if I had to do it now, I don't think I will be able to make it. And I don't see how parents are doing it now. And again, like Pastor Jose was saying, is that parents are working 2, 3 jobs. And so they're like that communication with their children now. They're not there. Mm-hmm.
after hearing all this, Ben, welcome to our community. And what do you see reflected back to you after writing these words and hearing from our key constituents?
Yeah, totally. Thank you all so much for sharing. I feel very honored to be here and to learn more about the people in this community because this is my first time here in Trenton. So it's a real pleasure. Um, I feel like this question about the relationship and this conflict around understanding between generations is something that I'm hearing, I think, across the panelists, and also something that I think I definitely experienced with my mother, being part of like that immigration generation that was working so hard. And while her work was more about, I guess, what would be labeled like blue collar, more about working with the body and doing, the kind of jobs that I think, Pastor Jose, that you alluded to with that there are jobs that other people in this country don't want to do. Um, and um, and the expectation then on my generation being born here in the States and having access to education, right? Which placed such heavy emphasis in my household on making sure that I was achieving on some level in terms of academics, um, was that I would be a white collar worker in some capacity. Like, of course, my mom really wanted me to be a doctor, right? And so I think that's when the sort of compromising needed to happen around like, that's not exactly what I imagined for my life, or like I would really like to do something that you view as successful. But the more and more I went through school, the less and less equipped I felt academically. And I was like, I know that I'm a smart person and that I'm capable, and a fast learner. But I find that like my inclination was more towards the arts and creativity, and like that's where my intelligence really felt like it bloomed and felt like I had things to offer. And of course, that was not the vision that my family necessarily had for me. And even to this day, even though I feel really proud of the accomplishments that I have made, I know that for them, they're still like, you could have been a doctor though. You were so smart. So yeah, so I do wonder about that difference between generations and sort of maybe even the guilt that I feel in my generation of like, oh, in the eyes of the immigrant generation, anything should have been possible for me, and maybe more should have been achieved in their eyes. Um, so that is definitely something that I think I've grappled with in the past. Um, and yet at the same time, there is this sort of like acknowledgement around the sacrifice that was made by that immigrant generation, that they gave up so much. And yes, they're working so hard, and I'm sure that like those parents wanted to spend more time with their children, right? Like I'm sure if that were an option, more easily, that would be a priority. Um, but yeah, I think in the current economy and with like capitalism running amok at the level that it is right now, it's just so hard for anybody to make ends meet. Um, so I understand the sacrifice, and I understood the time away, and I, as an individual, I feel really privileged that I was able to have as much access to my mother as I did have growing up.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This has been a very robust discussion. We've had some attendees join us since we started. So, just a reminder, this is the community dialogue for Passage Theater's production of ALMA by Ben Benet, who just spoke. This is Naturalized Souls, the Barriers to U.S. Citizenship. We have several key community members here on the panel to gain support in the important themes of the play. I just put into the chat the link to get tickets and how to come see the show right here at this theater. It is not a church, it is a theater for the past 40 years on Front in Montgomery, Passage Theater Company. I will soon, we will open it up to the Q&A. If there are any questions from the audience that we have, If you're live streaming on YouTube, you can put questions into the comments section is there. We'll run over and check them there as well. But before I open up to the Q&A, are there any things that the panelists would like to wrap up with before the public section?
I have a curious question. It's more one of artistic demeanor. I'm wondering, Ben, what does the elephant represent? Because you use the elephant a lot in the conversation. I'm wondering, is there a meaning behind that?
Oh, I love that question. Yeah, for me, the elephant represented actually two different things that are different symbolically. The first is that the elephants are matriarchal, so they're led by a woman, and the family all revolves around a female figure. And they're deeply loyal to each other. Like the families are just so territorial towards other animals, but incredibly protective of each other. Um, and um, and then there was this image in the play about elephants mourning, how their feelings for each other run so deep that they even will collect and hold bones of their dead. And at least from a human perspective, it looks like the equivalent of grief and mourning and memorialization. So I was just really struck by that image, and it made me think a little bit of Alma as this matriarch and her fierce loyalty to her daughter in the play. And then I think the other symbol that it started to acquire is that of the Republican Party. I think one that has I think that views itself as being fiercely loyal to its own kind. But I feel like that image has been really difficult for me to understand post 2016, because it felt like at the beginning of Trump's campaign, so many Republicans were very vocal in speaking against his platform. But the more that he began collecting voters and winning support in that realm, more and more of these public Republican figures started to silence themselves and or start to support him vocally. And I found that to be really problematic in the sense that it began to feel a little hypocritical. And so yeah, so I think the play holds both of those things. There's this sort of looking at a family and looking at like what it means to feel obligation and loyalty towards someone, and also this image of something that is supposed to be loyal but also holds some hypocrisy within it. And I think that's also a challenge that Alma and Angel we've come to realize feel towards each other, towards as the play unfolds, is this sense of resentment, is this sense of betrayal, is this sense of you're withholding information from me that I should be privy to. And so yeah, so that's what the symbolism of the elephants meant for me in the play.
Wow, what a great dichotomous contrast. Very good. I love it.
No, thank you so much. Thanks for the question. I appreciate it.
Awesome, awesome, wonderful. Well, I would like to open it up to our attendees. If we have anyone here in the Zoom room or anyone on YouTube who has questions for Ben or for our panelists about the show, you can use the Q&A section here below. All right. It looks like we have our yes, we have our first question. This is anonymous. Can you speak to the difference between the relationship between an immigrant mother and their daughter versus their son, if there is one? And if we need to expand the question a little bit, a little more, in each of your own communities, what is the difference in the familial relationship between mother to son and mother to daughter?
I mean, I can speak from a creative standpoint, I guess, as a jumping off point, and thread in a
Please
little
do.
bit of personal experience. Yeah, so in writing the play, I chose to frame it as a mother-daughter relationship because my mother and my family was the immigrant. So that's something that I think I could more clearly translate into a creative work. The reason why I decided to have the parent-child relationship be specifically a daughter is because I felt like that relationship was one where I could see a little bit more of the emotional context of the play being a little more vulnerable and a little bit more open. That the way that mothers and daughters fight feels like it can be a lot more vicious than the way that I could fight with my mother as a man. Um, that because of sort of the patriarchal stuff that you inherit oftentimes in a Latinx family, that I felt like even my grandmother gives me a little bit more respect than she does to her granddaughters, or even my sister. So I was just sort of interested in that relationship of two people who felt like they were a little bit more on equal footing and saw themselves more as like on a more complicated plane of existence. Because also in the story, because Alma and Angel's ages are so close, being only 17 years apart, there's some context to the play that's like they behave sometimes more like sisters than they do mother-daughter. So I loved that complication of like sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're more like siblings, sometimes there is this mother-daughter dynamic. Sometimes there are times where it feels like the daughter is actually mothering the parent, just because of the ways that they fight and or have to console each other. So at least from a creative standpoint, I felt like I could mine that a lot more for drama, than I could if I was trying to write about the relationship between uh, a mother and thinking about myself as a son. Um, and then I think speaking to like the father-son relationship, that's so complicated. I don't even know if I can start to unpack that right now in front of everybody. But yes, at least as a jumping off point for at least in my experience, why some of the threads in the relationship between sort of myself and my mother and my sister and my mother felt like things that I could pull from and that I wanted to frame this as sort of a mother-daughter specific type of relationship.
Thank you, Ben. As our audiences will see, you've unpacked quite a lot in these 90 minutes, so no need to unpack any further. Um, um, Based on what Ben said about the creative process in that question, Waldemir or Vero, can you speak to any of your own experiences, or those of your families?
Sure. Well, in relation between daughters and father, I was single dad for a couple years. And my daughter, she came and lived with me. She was like a 9. So I was single dad for a couple years. It was difficult times because I have a boy and I had 3 girls, but this time, my second marriage, I had to take care of my daughter. And we we built this relationship like a friends. You know, I used to have 4 jobs back then, 4 jobs. And also I was involved with the community. I was involved with schools and I was doing everything for my daughter. I was doing anything for my daughter, and same thing I was doing for my son. So was no like favoritism, anything. Just my experience as a single dad, it was great. But it was, I mean, if I had to do it again, I'd do it. It's a blessing to have a kids and have a kids like able to grow up, and now you see them finish college. All my 4 kids finished college, and I have a daughter. She's 32 now. She's a pastor. So for coming from immigrants, and she was born in Trenton, and always they say kids come from Trenton. They call it kids come from the ghetto, and they no success. But showing the education from home, that's the key as well. So for me, be proud. I have a daughter, and she just purchased her first house on Tuesday. So for me, just like she's making the American dream herself now, and I'm feel proud for my daughter. And like I said, I will support my kids. I got remarried. I don't call it stepsons. I call my 2 sons now. I treat them like my own kids. There's no difference. And I want to put these kids to college as well. So And like it's for me, it's not make it like I say, it was difficult when my kids, my when I was a single dad, be a man with three girls in a home, my three childrens, three girls and a boy. It was difficult when they want to go take a shower. I took it 3 hours when my son takes 2 seconds. And I be ready. And so I used to tell my girls, be ready in an hour, but I know to be ready by 4 when I told her to be ready by 1. So it's things they coming together, but like I say, and like also Pastor Cruz say, I mean Pastor Jose say that, and we need to spend time with our kids, but at that time I have to provide for all my kids as a single dad. Thank you.
So I can speak to two things, right? When we came to the States, I was 12, my brother was 10. So he was my little brother. So I had to take care of him per se, right? We went to the same school. I was expected to take care of him. I was expected to be his protector. I was expected to make sure that he didn't get in trouble. I was expected to make sure that he did his homework. When we came home, it was expected that I will make him snacks. Um, those expectations could only follow me. It was never, make sure you do this, right, for your sister. It was make sure you do this for your brother. As a mom myself, I had two boys, and and it wasn't just them two. I mean, my house was the that's where we all go house. I mean, I had like 10 boys at the same time, all the time, and I'm not even 5 feet tall, and my kids are like almost six. And so, they were my protectors. My relationship with my kids, it's great. They are also in the arts business. They did not want to be doctors or lawyers. I don't know why. Right? And I had to come to to be in peace with that. I had to let them be themselves. And I told them that. I said, my expectations were this, but you are your own, and I want you to be happy. That's goal number one. So, and I know you love music, and I know you love writing music, and I know you love writing lyrics, and they're great at doing that. And they've been doing that since they were young. They were 7, 8 years old. They're now 28 and 30, and they're still doing that. If I'm not wrong, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not. They'll probably get me out afterwards, but I think they're going to London to do a show pretty soon. My son Malik, he goes by Chico McGee. So if you guys know him, I'm his mom. He'll probably get me for that too. But I'm very excited for my kids, and I think if I would have had girls, it definitely would have been much, much different. Just because that's how our culture is. The expectation for women is different, definitely different than it is for boys. And I started working as a sophomore. So all my sophomore, junior, and senior year, I worked a full-time job to help take care of my brother and my mom, my dad. My dad was unemployed and he was blackballed, so it was difficult for him to get a job. And I still managed to graduate with honors. And I don't know when I slept. I don't remember sleeping, I guess. But I was blessed to do that. I feel proud, and my sons can see that, and my relationship with my mother was great, but like I said, that was the expectation. You need to take care of your brother.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
I just want to put two more points into to that. Like sometimes it's the way you get raised. My I got raised from my grandparents. My mom left me when I was 11 months, when I was born. Like 11 months, she left me. And my father was alcoholic, and I was raised by my grandparents to age 12. I had to leave the country. But at age 5, I was have a job. I used to go to school and have a job at the same time. So I learned since a little to work. Was for me, it was not because my parents need me to work. I need to make my own So I learned to work, and it's one thing I pass it on to my kids. I told them a story. Listen, I worked when I was 5. In America, you don't have to go to work at 5, but I have to work because my mom left when I was 11 months. I met my mom when I was 20. You know, that was for me just like, I mean, I still try to have a relationship with my mom, but it was not the same. And so with my kid was coming first with anything else. God first, and then my kids. I was giving the best to my kids, whatever I can. You have to work 3 or 4 jobs, and that sometimes we need to understand that we as a parents, we come in like my background, we wanted the best for our kids. I didn't have it. I wanted my kids have it. You know, so and sometimes you have to sacrifice, not spend time with your kids because you have to work, try to act your best. It's difficult making the decision, but if I want to turn the clock, I would raise my kids different way, spend more time with them. You know, but time go by and you just say, wow. Right now, I have 3 granddaughters already. So it's, for me now, I spend time with my grandkids when I spend my kids. So it's part of the circle of life, and also do with the play, and just bring to attention our community. That's important to unite with, be with the community. It's important be with our kids. It's important, but also they understand that we have to sacrifice time to work, and especially difficult times now that everything's expensive. Now it's double, triple back in the we was kids. And like I know Beto for a couple years now, we for over a while, and she's a great mother. Trust me. I wish it was my mom. I wish it was my mom. She's a great person, lovely person. And I every time I see her with her kids, I mean, I wish it was my mom. But my mom's in heaven, my dad's in heaven. But that's why I treat my kids the best I can.
Oh,
Amen.
thank you. I love you.
That was very heartfelt, Waldemar. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're nearing the end of our time. If any of our attendees and guests would like to ask another question to round us out for the panel, um, if we don't have anything, I would like to close with one of my favorite points of the script for Ben. The play begins with just the sky. And this is something that the audience will never see because the audience probably won't read the script. But the play starts with the sky in ancient times and it goes to how the sky is in modern times. And so we see what would have been before colonization, before even any human touch, but just the natural stars and feeling of the sky. We see that at the very top of the play, and then it transitions into the sky you can see outside now with plinth much of the human-made light pollution. Um, Ben, why does the play start with the sky?
Yeah, I an important image in the play are stars. I think for some reason humans just have a fascination with sort of the cosmic. At least I do. And so I've always looked to the sky with fascination and also with hope. I don't know where the wishing on a star comes from, but clearly there's been some historic just strain of we look to the stars for like the future, and it just becomes a symbol of like, you know, yeah, yeah, totally. So it starts with the sky. It starts with many possibilities. It starts with the cosmic. It starts with the things that are bigger than us. And then slowly comes down into this very specific moment that we exist in right now.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Actually, today during lunch, I took a minute to just sit outside of our building. You have chairs that you can actually like lounging chairs, and I just sat there and just looked at the sky. I actually shared them in Facebook, and I was like, I wish you guys could just stop for a minute and just look at Look at the sky right now. And Ben, I don't know if you ever been to Guatemala, but if you ever do, you're more than welcome to come to my house, first of all, okay? Second of all, you will see this the starriest sky ever. There's so many beautiful stars that you don't get to see in New York, and definitely not in LA. But and like you said, you know, we look at the sky for guidance. You know, I mean, even in religion, right? When Christ was born, I mean, weren't we following a star? And there's just so much and like you said, there is just esperanza. You know, and you're dreaming. You know, this is why we're dreamers. Valdemar, you and I we're dreamers, and we're dreaming of a better education, better life for our children and other people's children. This is why we're involved in our community, because yes, we already did our jobs with our kids, but we got more kids out there that need us as a community. If the parents are not able to be there, then we should be able to be tias and tios and pick up that tab. I think parents also every now and then might need a night off just for themselves, just to rejuvenate and re-energize. And something that you said, Ben, that really hit me was how we want our like our dreams to be, for you to make our dreams come true per se, right? And especially with school. And we need as parents to let you guys be. Just come to peace and be like, you know what? Be the best version of you. Whatever God put you on this earth to do, just do that. Be happy. And we need to let go as parents. We need to let go and just bless our children and send them on their way and you know, be powerful. You're being powerful right now, Ben. And I can't wait to go see this play. I don't know if I want to read it first and then go see it, or I want to see it first and then go read it. So thank you. And thank you for inviting me to this panel. I'm highly honored. Thank you.
Thank you, Vero. On that, I would like to say thank you to all of our attendees. I would like to say thank you to our panelists, Vero de Leon, Waldemar Ronquillo, Pastor Jose, Pastora Karen, and of course our playwright Benjamin Benet, to Passage staff and our board of trustees. And please do the websites are in the chat and available wherever you click. And October 4th, I would love to see everyone right here behind me at the Playhouse for ALMA. I think it's a needed show, and I think this panel has shown that. So with
We need
that,
to bring the family.
yes,
Thank you.
yes, yes.
So when the tickets available to purchase it?
I think they're available now, yeah?
Yes, tickets are on sale. Yes, you can visit passagetheater.org or r.show/Alma. Yes, I just put those links in the chat. Tickets are on sale right now. We've sold some, but there's no sold out performance yet between October 4th and October 20th, Thursdays through Sundays, 5 shows each week. So yes, tickets are available, and you can call the box office for group sales. If you have a group of 10 or more, we can certainly give you a discounted rate. So we'll put this video out for everyone to share once it's done rendering this evening. And I wish everyone a great night and lots of healing and lots of hope, because that's what ALMA is about. Thank you, everyone.
Oh,
Have a great night. Thank you.
thank you so much for all of this.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. It's been a real blessing to get to spend this time and to meet each of you. Thank you for sharing so much about yourselves. I hope we stay in touch.
Ben, are you here in Trend right now?
I am. I just got in today, and I'll be here through Sunday.
Through Sunday. All right. Well, we need to get together for coffee or something. I'll be more than happy to come pick you up. Just let us know.
I would love that. Great. I think all of our emails are all on the thread for this
Yes.
panel. Yes, Prisha?
Yes,
Okay,
you're
great.
all on the email thread, and I'll reply to that with the video this evening when it was done.
Perfect.
Rendering. Yep.
Great.
Right.
So I'll email you, Vero, and we can make some plans.
Awesome. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for
That's
offering
great.
that.
All
That's
right.
very
Thank
kind
you,
of you.
guys.
All right.
Be well.
Have a great
Adios.
night.